Welcome to the corner of Morse and Queen. My name is Chris Green. I'm the owner of Atlantic News. Really happy to have Payson Hunter here with us today. Welcome, Payson.
Pleasure to be here, Christopher.
Yes. Well, Payson is a customer here. We know each other, and I'm really excited about having Payson on here because we're going to talk about his book, The Investor's Advocate. Practical Counsel for Successful Investing. Payson, before we get into the book, tell us a little bit about yourself. What brought you to this point?
Okay, so background and the reasons for writing the book.
Yes.
Okay. Today is May 6th. 2 days ago was May 4th. That was the 56th anniversary of the shootings at Kent State.
4 dead in Ohio, yes.
Yes. 13 students shot, 4 dead, 2 permanently paralyzed. And I was in the middle of it, in command of the color guard a few days before it happened. And I knew what was going to unfold with the demonstrations. So it was a prime reason for my coming to Canada. And being here has been an enormously positive experience.
Right. Interesting. I am a recent mover to Canada as well. More recent than you. I married a New Brunswicker, so I've been here 3 years.
This is the new Immigrants to Canada show.
Yes, that's right. So briefly, how were you involved in this historical incident that changed your life and brought you here? You were a student at Kent State?
I was a student at Kent State, and I was in the ROTC at the time. Vietnam War was on, and selective service, and I decided I'd rather be giving the orders than taking the orders if that was possible. So I enrolled in ROTC, and for some reason they put me in charge of the color guard, and there were 700 of us on the field. And out of nowhere comes 25 to 40 demonstrators from the left-hand side as I'm marching the colors forward, with a rifle over my shoulder, with a bayonet fixed on it, and 3 television cameras recording us. And so I gave an order to mark time. The demonstrators continued across, missed us by fractions of an inch, physical contact, turned around and went away, and we concluded the ceremonies by going back to what was planned. When I went to turn in my rifle, the gunnery sergeant at the armory started screaming at me, "Hunter, why didn't you use your weapon when you had a chance?" I turned and walked out of the building. He was still screaming as I crossed the commons, and I could still hear him from inside. He was apoplectic. So anyway, that was my ROTC experience, and I knew that there was going to be difficulty. So as the demonstrations continued on, I took 3 of my classmates off campus, knowing that, and I missed my French final, knowing that it was going to end in disaster, and it did.
And I mean, luckily, I don't know if that's the right word, but when the shooting happened, you weren't on campus.
No, we were off campus.
You saw this coming.
Yep.
Wow. So to be a part of a historical piece like that, and you said this led you to think that maybe Canada would be a better option. What's the connection there?
No, not at all.
No.
So the school closed early, and I started my summer job at IBM corporate headquarters in Armonk, New York. And my family, both my mother and my father, both worked for IBM. And unfortunately, there were periods when someone would bring up, where did I go to school? And I heard they should have shot them all, was the psychology. It was a very hateful time. Richard Nixon had turned student demonstrators against the Vietnam War into the enemies of the people, in a similar kind of
seems
to today.
Yeah, right.
So it was a very tense time in politics in the United States. My brother-in-law had just come back from his 3rd tour as a Marine in Vietnam and forward fire bases in the jungle to continue his degree at Dalhousie, where he was on a scholarship before he enlisted in the Marines. And so I came up to visit, and I just fell in love with the place. People waved at you with all 5 fingers, and you didn't have to be afraid of the police. They were there to help and support the community, and they made education extremely reasonable at cost. And there was just so much opportunity in Halifax. It was a very, very underserved market.
Right. And away we go. And as an aside, I find that today. I moved here 3 years ago, and it's an exciting city. It's growing all sorts of opportunities. So I think that hasn't changed. Yeah. So you come here. You've had a long career as an investor's advocate. Why this book? Because there are all sorts of books on making millions of dollars on Wall Street. And I know you don't promise to do that
right.
here, but why this book?
I was very fortunate. I was going to start my own money management firm after 15 years of corporate finance because making wealthy people wealthier wasn't terribly satisfying. And I came into the retail side of the business because my mentor, Norman Newman, said, don't start the company. He was dying of liver cancer, and he wanted me to check out the industry first from the retail side. So I did. I joined Wood Gundy, and I loved it. I spent 25 years, and I've just felt totally blessed to be there, and it was fabulous helping people. 25 years without a single client complaint. Not everybody was always happy, but the complaint process is a big deal in the investment business.
Right.
I didn't have any. To which a friend of mine on the board of the Investment Regulatory Organization of Canada said, that's not impressive. He said, that's impossible. But I was a discretionary portfolio manager, which when I came to Wood Gundy was not allowed. They made an exemption for me. Now to be a portfolio manager is the it thing in the industry. But instead of calling people up to sell them something, I took people's assets into the company and I managed them for them, and then I'd tell them how they did. That was it. That was a totally different thing. And I started a little company called Equity Capital Partners as a demonstration portfolio of my investment philosophy, and that really set it off.
So then this book is your way to give back and try to help those
Yes.
to set this up for themselves.
So I would still be working if I hadn't been sick. And I'd been sick for a long time, and then suddenly I was able to manage my illness, but I transitioned my clients to my successor. And I still wanted to try to help people. So having seen how people made such fairly substantial life-destroying errors in their finances, witness what happened when Nortel in the bubble of the .com era, I felt if I could help a whole bunch of people do better, it might make the world a better place.
Nice.
And it was really just, it's not going to ever make any money, the book. It's an altruistic.
Right. And we get a lot of self-published books or books that local folks have put together, and your book is for a relatively small book that is, you're not pushing it to take over the world. It's gotten accolades in terms of what's the stamp that was on it. That's not an easy thing to get. I mean, just briefly, just to let people know that people have taken notice to this book.
So it had a Kirkus starred review,
that's
which
right,
is reserved for books of exceptional merit.
Right.
And about 10% of the 10 or 12,000 books they review a year get a starred review.
Yeah.
A third of those are independently published, and only 1 or 2% get a starred review. So we're talking, maybe 60 of 3,000 books.
Okay.
So then Kirkus recognized the book as one of the 100 best independently published books of 2024, and that's the little button that I stick.
That's right. Well, congrats on that. And we have authors that come in and see that sticker on your book and say, "How did he do that?" So I don't know. Maybe this discussion will open that up a little bit. So on the cover of the book, there's a quote from a noted individual that mentions that your book brings a fresh perspective. And again, in the sea of investment books, to get us into some of the details of your book, what is your fresh perspective?
The fresh perspective is that the biggest obstacle to investment success is the client's emotions. And the way to deal with those and protect the client from their own emotions is process. That's the antidote.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I developed a process in my investment philosophy and practice that was centered around three things: articulating a formal statement of investment objectives, having a written financial plan, and having a formal investment policy statement. Those are the three building blocks. In the industry generally, they have a thing called a KYC, Know Your Client form.
Mm-hmm.
That form says, what are your objectives?
Pretty
High risk, low risk,
Pretty standard. You kind of check boxes.
long-term, short-term.
Yeah.
It doesn't really deal with what the client's objectives are really about. So in my practice, I joined a thing called the Strategic Coach in Toronto, founded by a man named Dan Sullivan, and it was life-changing. In that coach, he has a series of tools, one of which is a questionnaire that I used with my clients that basically had 4 questions. That if we were sitting here today, 3 years from today, looking back on today, what would have to be achieved for you to feel happy about the progress? And normally what I found, clients opened up to that question. And then I asked 3 more questions. What dangers do you face that we can help mitigate? What opportunities do you have that we can help you capture? What strengths do you have that we can help reinforce and build?
So similar, a lot of organizations, schools I worked at did SWOT analysis.
Very similar.
Similar to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what comes out of that is the core of being able to say, these funds are because I want to achieve this.
Mm-hmm.
Educate the kids, leave an estate to the heirs, have a secure retirement, but you can specifically identify what they are. Given that, then you can go forward, do an inventory of what you got, and have a financial plan prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the objectives over here. You have the financial plan as a strategy document, get from here to there over this period. Then you develop an investment policy statement which gives the boundaries of what you will and what you won't do and how you will do it. And that is the key. As a discretionary portfolio manager, you cannot prove that you cannot demonstrate that you were diligent unless you have an investment policy statement with which you comply.
This is how you gauge how you're doing. And also it sounds like this statement is your roadmap. You follow this.
Absolutely.
And then you come back and check, and if you veered off of it, well, what's happened? Let's get back on this.
And when the news headlines get really scary or animal spirits are running full force,
As they do.
as they do, you go back and you say, I think I really want to own that company. That sounds like it's an opportunity.
But the key is, okay, let's go back to your statement. Does this fit with what you talked about you wanted?
Is it quality? Does it have a big margin of safety? Do I understand why it's selling at a discount? Do I see a catalyst to change that and unlock the value? What's the character of management? What are the risks that the company faces? What's the sustainability of its earnings? Things like that.
So you mentioned it before, but here's another example of process overtaking emotion.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a theme throughout, isn't it?
And as a person who's been doing this for over 50 years for myself, I find periodically if I don't go back to the checklist, I can make mistakes.
Well, it's easy to lose sight of what you're doing, particularly when the market is booming or busting and, ooh, here's an opportunity. And
That's right.
Right. Yeah, I was talking with my wife this morning about our discussion, and she said, well, are you going to talk to him about how does one from a different generation figure out how they're going to invest? You have 20-year-olds, you have 30-year-olds, you have 50-year-olds. We have all these millennials right now that everything you read about millennials is that they've been burned by the market crash of 2008. They've gone through COVID. So millennials don't want to get married. They don't want a bunch of stuff. They're not buying houses. They're not buying silver. and it's more about experience.
The experience economy was a
Yeah.
book that came out of two authors
Right.
from Harvard. Yeah,
Right,
it's
right.
great.
And it appears that this again, the process over emotion, whether you're 20 years old or 80 years old, it doesn't matter, does it? If you start with these foundation points of where you're trying to get and how much time do you have, what's your time frame?
Let me diverge for a second, because that takes me back in time. My father was a corporate guy. He was a Navy guy. He was an Eagle Scout. Everything in its place. Exactly.
Were you an Eagle Scout, by the way?
Oh, no.
So both of my grandfathers and my father were Eagle Scouts. I was only a tenderfoot. But anyway, go on.
So, Navy parlance, a place for everything and everything in its place. And he worried he would never get me behind a desk to work in an office, because he felt, having gone through the Great Depression, that the key to success was to get a sound job that had a pension, work until you couldn't do it anymore.
Stay at that company for your whole life.
Right.
Yes, right.
But let's go back 50 years. In Nova Scotia at that time, everybody was going back to the land. Nobody wanted to do the corporate thing, right?
Right, right.
We're there again. There's not a lot of people who want to do the corporate thing, and maybe they won't ever get another chance, because nobody's hiring the entry-level employees. They're trying to replace that with
AI.
right?
Yeah, right. That's all. Right.
So the world changes, but the fundamental truths apply. The way to find a career is to identify a need and help create value for the person with that need. It's doing good for others, doing well by doing good.
Right. And so then, of course, it's not zero sum. It's I'm doing well, you're doing well, the classic win-win.
Mutual benefit.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Unfortunately, the politics today are very much zero sum.
Very much so.
Right.
Very much so.
I can't win unless you lose.
Right.
Right. Well, that's a express lane to perdition, in my opinion. Okay.
Right.
Because the only way we do better is if we both benefit mutually.
And there's not a lot of that vibe of discussion going on around the world, is there? It seems to be zero sum. It's I win, you lose. But maybe that's why we diverge a little bit. But maybe that's why Mr. Carney is doing so well, because he doesn't seem to speak in those terms.
He sees it. He understands that.
Right.
The key. There was a man who, in my career, who said, if you can't work with people, you can't achieve anything. And that's the key, the Dale Carnegie world of how to win friends and influence people.
So these are old. These are tried and true, if you will, values that regardless of what's going on in the world, going back to your investor's advocate, this process, right? And this process, regardless of what's going on, will at least help keep the emotions in check, because the emotions are never going to disappear, of course.
That's right. Unless we become artificially intelligent with chips in our head, we're still going to be human beings.
Yeah.
That get emotional. But the question in my mind is, there's so much enthusiasm of how artificial intelligence is going to change the world, and it probably will. Big questions of for the better or for the worse. But the news is so terrible lately that I have difficulty watching it.
Yes, running a newsstand, I try to convince people to come in here and follow the news. It's tough sometimes.
That's right. But the TV stuff, just,
yes.
You don't sleep well after you've watched
Right.
the Gaza bombings.
Right.
And part of the solution that I've found is I've gone back and cleaning the house. Lo and behold, there was a Bible on the night table. And I started reading Proverbs, the wisdom of Solomon. Love knowledge, embrace wisdom, gain judgment, surround yourself with smart people. Right? make good decisions.
Not
basically.
new revolutionary ideas.
No, goes back a while in time, right?
Right.
Right? So the stuff that has been around forever has been around forever for a reason. The classics. There was a great show on TV, I think it was Nova, I'm not sure, on Greek history and how the Greek democracy started. It wasn't by voting, it was by lottery. You lined up 1,200 people and you had a bunch of cubes that went down the voting machine, and if it came out black, the people on that row were removed. If it came down white, the people in that row were put over into the public service for a year, and then that, then that's, and you didn't get to vote, you didn't get to campaign, you got selected, and you were stuck there for a year.
It's your responsibility as a citizen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you probably had no predilection towards politics or public service. You were just a person, male
Yeah.
or female. Well, back in Greece, I think they only
Just
did
males, yeah.
But you had to get along with it, people, and you had to debate, and you had to come up with solutions. Hence the great Socratic dialogues and debates.
Right.
Today, if you think about how embedded money has become an influence in politics, it's a real threat to our democracy, I think.
Yeah, and more than ever, it seems to drive it. And I know this isn't a new item, but it sure seems that way these days. Yes, and that's
So-
what turns people off from it, and that gets people not to vote, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
large divergence from
Yes.
investing
So
successfully.
yeah, and but it ties into your process. In your book, you mention you go through, even before you go into details of these building blocks, you talk about primary issues of emotion, of this notion of prediction. You talk about different a philosophy section of knowing yourself, the idea of cycles. So as we've talked about here,
Okay.
you remind people that there's really nothing new under the sun if you stick to the basics.
That brings up a quote that I'll take out of the emotion section of the book here for a
Yes,
second.
yes.
It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's good. That's good.
So that's from Mark Twain, right? And what, as an accountant with years of experience in finance, do I know? I know a little bit about numbers. Okay? I don't know a lot about anything else.
Mhm.
I'm a numbers guy.
Mhm.
Okay? So what's the market going to do? The only guy I know who got it right was J.P. Morgan. Mr. Morgan, what's the stock market going to do? His answer was, stocks will fluctuate.
And that's it. And that gets to your piece about prediction. You can't get hung up on predicting there's no crystal ball.
No.
There's no crystal
But
ball.
what do I know? I know there are certain things that define what makes a quality company,
Mhm.
quality for investment purposes. And the number one thing is the character of management.
Mhm.
And I found that artificial intelligence does give you it's handy. If you go to Perplexity and say, give me an assessment of the character of management of XYZ Corporation, it comes back and gives you quite a bit of information that you wouldn't have otherwise had.
And helpful information.
Yeah.
Ah,
It may not be
interesting.
right,
Yeah,
but it's a place to start.
but it's information. In the primary issues piece, you talk about this fear of over diversification, which I found interesting because in the popular press, and what you hear is diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you diversify, that's going to protect you, and you're going to grow your nest egg.
It's going to protect you from your own ignorance.
Okay, and one of your big points over and over again is that over diversification is going to hold you back.
That's right.
You want to talk about that briefly?
So if you have a portfolio of 40 companies and you select them the way Jimmy Pattison selected his Toyota salesman. He'd line them up every month in order of sales, and the guy at the
There
end
you go.
was, "You're done," right?
Okay.
I call that the Jimmy Pattison School of Motivational Management. If you have 40 companies in your portfolio, and let's say you had $100,000 to invest, and you're going to put $2,500 in each company, would you not put 10,000 in the best one and 200 in the worst one? Or why would you put any money in the worst one?
Right.
Why wouldn't you put all your money in the top few? Warren Buffett talks about, if you're not prepared to put half of your money in the company,
Don't do it.
don't do it at all. He doesn't say put half the money in, but if you're not that committed. He also says most people would do better if they got a whole punch card with 20 punches. And every time they made an investment decision, they used up one.
And that's all you get.
You get 20 for your life.
Right.
There was an article that I was reading this morning, and I think it was on Bloomberg, reviewing Greg Abel, who's taken over as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. He's stuck with a problem. He's having to follow Warren Buffett's act, tough act to follow. They've got almost $400 billion of their $700 billion portfolio in cash. But of the almost $300 plus billion that is in equities, 70% of their equity portfolio is in 6 companies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he is arguably the most successful investor in history, and he says concentrated portfolio is the way to go, why do people put 100 or more companies in their portfolio?
So why this popular notion of diversification? Because for a lot of the big firms that are taking money and don't have a lot of time, it's safer?
Yes, and John Maynard Keynes said it best, that people who invest unconventionally and succeed are denigrated, saying, "Oh, he was just lucky." That's what they said about Warren Buffett for the first 45 years of his when New Coke took his $1 billion investment in Coke down by half. They said Warren Buffett's blown out. I knew it would happen eventually. Right? Well, it was a huge opportunity to buy Berkshire Hathaway at that time, but it came back. Okay, Keynes said it's better to fail conventionally than succeed unconventionally. Because if you succeed unconventionally, nobody will give you credit for it. They say it was just lucky. And if you fail conventionally, you'll have lots of company.
Yeah.
And so in career risk of portfolio management, they put a lot more portfolio companies in there than they need to. The benefits of diversification are real. It's a free lunch in investing for reducing risk. But the marginal benefit of an additional stock in a portfolio, once you've got 10 stocks that aren't correlated, if you've got 5 Canadian bank stocks,
Right.
You've got really one industry. They're not individual.
So you start diluting the benefits of diversification as you go.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Number one, you dilute your focus, so you can't bring the same intellectual horsepower to the next decision and monitoring it. But number two, the benefits of the 11th portfolio addition are so negligible that you get, I think it was 80% of the benefit in 5 company portfolio and 90-ish% of the benefit in 8 portfolios and 93 or something percent in 10 portfolios. It's in the book in detail.
Yes.
From William F. Sharp's Nobel Prize winning work.
But I found that interesting because, again, the stuff you read in popular press would be, diversify.
And that is the right thing to do
At a certain
because
level.
most people don't have the knowledge or the tools to make the decisions of what they should invest in, full stop.
Right.
So Warren Buffett, John Bogle, all sorts of people say, buy an index fund because that's the only way you're going to get market returns. If you try to beat the market and your thinking is incorrect, you're going to hurt yourself.
Right. Now, you mentioned margin of safety, and can you unpack that a little bit without going into the weeds of a mathematical formula? You talk about
Yep.
the margin of safety is a crucial piece, because I think that helps take care of emotion. It's a process.
Benjamin Graham, in his book, The Intelligent Investor, likened it to the wisdom of the ages.
Mm-hmm.
And his parable is, in the old days, the collective wisdom of the rabbis was, this too shall pass.
Mm-hmm.
To make our equivalent statement of what's important in investing, 3 words: margin of safety. Why buy a stock that's fully valued? Buffett would say that's like taking a 10,000-pound truck and driving it across a bridge that's rated for 10,000 pounds. You hope all the bolts haven't started to rust.
And this is the emotional piece of buying a stock when it's booming and everybody's talking about it.
Or, yeah, and in some cases you might be paying 2 times what the stock is really worth.
Right.
And you're setting yourself up for real disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
So better to either have a smaller truck or find a stronger bridge.
Mm-hmm.
In my practice, I had a personal rule. When I looked at a conservatively estimated valuation of what the company was worth, I would not buy it, even if it met all my other characteristics of quality and likely catalysts. I would not buy it unless I was getting it for at least a 1/3 discount to what I thought it was worth.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm wrong, and my estimate was off, and it was really only worth 80% of what I thought it was worth, well, I still got it at a small discount.
Okay. And if it doesn't meet those requirements, then you don't buy it at that time.
That's
because
right.
Things could change.
That's right.
Right.
It's very difficult. One of the most difficult things for a human being to do is nothing. Everybody wants to be active, mistaking activity for progress. And the world would be a much better place if people could just sit and wait. Wait for the fat pitch. Nobody's calling strikes, as they say. You're just waiting for somebody to present you with a huge opportunity. So if you estimate, you think you found a great company. Let's take a Google or an Amazon or a Johnson & Johnson. And you're waiting for an opportunity to buy it at a discount. You've done your work. You've identified it as a great company. And you think that it's worth X dollars. Along comes a market event and everything goes on sale. Or along comes a headline event. Johnson & Johnson's baby powder causes ovarian cancer. The stock drops 10 or 15%.
Mm-hmm.
What most people don't see in the volatility in the stock market, they see it as something to fear. If you look at the 52-week high-low of the stocks in the stock market, the vast majority of the stocks in the stock market, you will see a 30% differential. The stock went from $100 to $70. The high was 100, the low was 70. And from the low up, you had an almost 50% rise. The intrinsic value of that company, the net present value of all those future cash flows, hardly moved at all. What moved was the public's perception, and hence the market participation put more sellers into the market than buyers. The stock went down.
So it's just the pure emotion playing around with the market price, but that hasn't changed the intrinsic value. That hasn't changed really what the company's worth.
People react to the headlines. People react to an... I'll give you a prime current example. It's year-end 2025. I'm reading the Globe and Mail online. Sorry, didn't have the printed copy. And there's a letter to the editor in the investing section. It says, I own Northland Power and TELUS. They're both down sharply this year. Should I sell them both, or should I sell one and double up on the other? I went, oh, well, yeah, sell them because they're on sale. Right? That's exactly what you don't do. Okay? So I said, okay, let's take a look at TELUS. Why is it down? Well, BCE cut its dividend, dropped 30 or 40%, and TELUS, in sympathy, went down to it thinking they were next. Their dividend yield was almost 10%. I think it was Darren Entwistle came out and said, we're going to freeze the dividend. We're not going to cut it. We're going to stop doing our aggressive uptakes for a while. And the market reacted like that was a dividend cut. The stock dropped about 30%. It was the year end. People were looking for tax loss candidates so they could harvest losses and offset their gains on the other portfolio. So the stocks were under a lot of selling pressure at year end. So I did my analysis on TELUS, and I looked at Northland Power, and I tried to understand what was happening at Northland. Northland had a bad announcement that one of their large wind farm projects off Taiwan was having a slower engagement of each of their towers than they anticipated. It was going to cost them $150 million, the delay. And as a result, they were taking a reserve for it, and they were cutting their dividend. The stock fell. But when you really looked at what they were doing, they were taking the company from being like a royalty trust that paid out all of their earnings and turning it more into a growth company so they could do more alternative energy projects and fund it with the capital that they saved on the dividends.
So not a good idea to sell that stock if you're hanging on to
Right.
it at that time.
So I bought both of them,
Right.
and 25 to 35% later, in 3 months, I sold them because they'd gone up so much that I didn't want to see the profit come.
Right.
That was short-term thinking on my part. It was probably a mistake, but they're both excellent companies. I'm not recommending anything here for anybody to buy except to focus on getting their thinking right and develop their own clearly defined objectives, financial plan, and investment policy.
Yeah, and this process very similar to what companies, institutions go through in a strategic plan. I know in being a head of school, I went through mission vision exercises where we would look at Simon Sinek sort of things and start with the why and look at the why and then go to how and the what. And in going through your book, it's very much out of that vein, isn't it?
Well, the cover, I think you were asking about the cover, was I have a sister-in-law whose partner retired from the investment business because he got an adverse diagnosis, and they said, now's the time to live it up.
Mm-hmm.
And they bought a boat and they cruised the South Pacific every winter for 5 years.
Nice.
And this is an island off Fiji, or one of the archipelagos, and they were walking around the island, and she turned around and took this photograph, and it just captured me. And I said,
It's quite a photo.
"What a great book cover!"
Yes.
One person I said to it, he said it almost looks like a parable of where were you when the footprints you were walking with me. Where were you when there was only with my footprints? He said, that's because they weren't yours, they were mine. I was carrying you. Right? But so the idea of you're not walking alone,
Right.
on a pristine sea of opportunity.
Right, and as you're going through this, there's a process. One of the final things I want to ask you about, you talk about this notion of it's not about prediction, and there are cycles, and these repeat, and if you look at the basics, you're going to be fine. And of course, tied in with what your goals are. But talk a little bit about this analogy of the stock market and how over time people view the stock market as different things, and this combination of stock market as church or business and casino, and where we seem to be at the moment.
Okay,
I found that
at the annual meeting, Buffett was recorded making an analogy of the stock market is like a church with a casino in the back. And sometimes people are in the church, I guess praying for deliverance. And other times they're in the back gambling
pulling the
away their
slots.
life savings.
Yeah, that's right.
And he said today the level of gambling is unprecedented.
Right.
That is kind of a statement of his view of the stock market.
And he just said this fairly recently.
Saturday.
Last week. Okay. So the wizard from Wichita is
Omaha.
Yeah. The Mr. Buffett is talking about this. So the church, and I assume the church analogy is that this is a place of faith. I mean, stock markets really, if they're doing well, they create jobs, they create wealth, they help move societies forward. But there's always a portion of the stock market that are shysters that are winning money for the short term off of their self, maybe not in the best means, and for a lot of people they view the stock market as just gambling. Right?
That was part of the reason for writing the book, was to help people evaluate whether or not they are getting quality advice that is in their best interests.
Right. So you stay out of the stock market, stay out of the casino part of it, and
You
10
gotta
more.
you gotta take risks.
Right.
Okay. There's nothing in there that doesn't happen.
No way to
without
avoid
taking
that.
risks.
Yeah.
You're either a defensive investor or an enterprising investor.
But this goes back to your plan at the beginning. Yes,
Right.
and then you stick to it.
And,
Right.
and so how do you do that? But you have to have the courage of your convictions. If you're going back to Mark Twain, it's what you don't. It's what you think is so, and it just ain't true. Is where you're getting in trouble. If you think that's a great company because it went up,
Right.
that's not a reason to buy a company because it went up.
So the positive of all this, and this is your book is very much coming from a positive place. If we look at today, and the news is so seemingly so bad, and it seems that the so-called church of the stock market, or the civic part of it, has been taken over by the casino. These things will change, and if you stay the course and focus on what you need, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, there was, when I was much younger, I don't think it's the case now, but there was the hemline theory, that hemlines rise as the stock markets rise and hemlines fall as the stock market
Right.
fall. And there's just all this human behavior that you can look and say, this, and ask yourself, are people being cavalier about risk? Or are people really fearful? Going back to Buffett again, he said, there are no guarantees in the stock market, but I can make this guarantee. When I'm finding lots of opportunity, I guarantee you won't like it one bit. And he goes on to say, the time to be fearful is when people are being greedy, i.e. gambling.
Yeah.
And the time to be greedy is when people are being fearful.
Right.
So I don't see a lot of fear out there today. And when I look at Berkshire Hathaway with more than 50% of their $700 billion portfolio in cash, short-term,
That tells you something.
and I look at Fairfax, a very similar business model, different in lots of ways, but it's built around writing insurance policies that give you the premium until the claims are paid, create a float of capital to invest. Fairfax has 25% of its $70 billion portfolio in equities. And that straight off the slide deck from their annual meeting a few weeks ago.
25%.
25%
Quite
in
small.
equities. Yes. Now, it's there in the insurance business. They're never going to be 100% in equities because they have to have reserves and the ability to pay their claims. But historically, that's more conservative than normal.
Right,
I
right.
think. So if those guys who have delivered such incredible results for the shareholders are being more conservative, well, I don't mind tailgating and being more conservative myself. That's one of the things about risk. You can see it, you can sense it, you can feel it. What do you see in the headlines? What are people saying? And when everybody's in love with things like Bitcoin, that really makes me uncomfortable.
Right, right. And then, as we know, things will change. So, well, Payson Hunter, thank you very much for this discussion. The book is The Investor's Advocate. We carry it here in Atlantic News. Payson, thank you very much.
And you've done a great job. Thank you.
Oh, cheers. Thank you.
Bye.